Standing practice to help you stop leaking energy and start to become aware of how you're holding yourself. Let's go. Standing practice tutorial. Feet just outside hip width, toes turned in, triangulated, outside blades of foot, parallel. The arms are about an inch forward from my thighs, and there's a circular feeling like I'm holding a round space. And I sit, dropping my knees, dropping my hips, dropping my chest down, elongating through the rear crown of my head, making sure that I'm not holding my breath, breathing fully into my lower belly, my sides, and my back. And I start to sink my tissues, so I'm releasing as much as possible. As I release my red tissues, like muscle and all of that, I let gravity sink that. I draw up through the rear crown of my head, elongating towards the sky to feel like I'm floating my spine, floating my bones, and this contrast between the sinking of the red tissues and the floating of the bones with a little bit of tension through the elongation in my fascia is what gives me a beautiful posture. It feels so good to hold. It's difficult because your muscles are going to want to switch on, your legs are going to want to work, but you need to just keep bringing your mind back to release. From the side on, it looks like this. I sit down into my hips and knees. I'm not tucking my hips under, I am sitting into those hips. But you can see that my lower back is full, my rear crown is long, my hands are close to the front of my thighs, and my weight is just behind the ball of my foot. Hold this posture, not breathing into the chest, not letting my shoulders rise, not letting my tension rise up and bunch high in my body. As much as possible, I'm scanning from feet all the way up, repetitively, relaxing, sinking, loosening into the posture. And any sensations I feel of effort, difficulty, challenge, I release into while keeping my mind constantly engaged on the right alignment. So you can see here I'm playing with pelvic positions, arching and tucking. This is just to show you that we want center, neutral. We don't want the toes. We don't want the heels either. We want just behind the ball of the foot where we feel both grounded and sprung. When you can align yourself with the line of gravity rather than too far outside it, it feels more effortless. So we're not lifting the chest, we're not overly extending. We're actually allowing the sternum to sink slightly down and back to create a nice container for the pressure of the breath. And then I'm drawing my chin slightly down and my rear crown long to float and reach my spine up. Shoulders aren't wrapping forward, they're not squeezing back. Again, we're in center and we're creating a sense of length from the ears through the shoulders to the fingertips. So let's go a bit deeper into it. We don't want the knees to be caving in because then we'll be using a lot of muscular effort. We also don't want to be driving them out because that's going to be using a lot of muscular effort. We want this slight opening. This slight opening creates a helix, a little bit of supportive wrap of connective tissue through the ligaments of the knees. With shoulders, we don't want them lifted, we don't want them back. There's no excess effort, there's just this centration of the shoulder and a release into length outward from my midsection, and that transmits down through the outside of the elbow, through the hands. My fingertips aren't locked straight, but they're not bent. There's this intention to just lengthen downward. And here I'm breathing and I'm softening as much as possible through my tissues, holding the posture. So let's go a little deeper, looking at the dang here. This is the dang. When you open the dang, it's not to drive the knees out beyond the outside blade of the foot, nor is it to let them collapse in. It's just this subtle opening which creates a helix of tension, and the connective tissue supports you through the knee. The weight's going to be just behind the ball of the foot and evenly distributed from instep to outstep. Not on the toes, not on the heels, but this combination of the two, which feels both springy and grounded and evenly distributed and relaxed. Through the qua. Now we're, as much as possible, emptying the qua, releasing, sung, softening. What this means is You don't want to be bunching any tension in the hips. There should be no inward contraction of muscles wrapping around bones. Look, this is a hard hip. I don't want this. This is a tense glute, not the aim. We want it to be soft, jiggly, like we could just pull the tissues off the bone. This allows the tissues to sink and to feel heavy and to have the sensation of the bones relative to that floating. So the same in the hip flexors, not tense, as soft as possible. And I find this right side for me is especially tight. So it's a more and less thing. More awareness of tightness, more potential to then release that. Now through the dantian, this midsection, breathing into my belly, into my sides and into my back. Not holding it in, not making it a nice sexy abdominal washboard. If you look from the side on, you'll see how it expands as I breathe. So I sink down into my seated posture, I allow my sternum to sit down and back, and then I breathe, and my back expands with my sides and belly, and you can see the tissues softening. You can see all those hard muscular lines disappearing, and you can see the inflation effect. Now obviously I'm just accentuating the lower back here, but it's the same thing for the whole body essentially, that same feeling of allowing the internal to external expansion because you're not contracting and constricting yourself. If we look from the back now, you'll become aware of just how much tone I'm holding in my lower back muscles. I woke up this morning with a bit of a tight lower back, I think from surfing yesterday, tweaking a hip. So what I'm trying to do here is release as much of that tone as possible, first by exploring alignment and position, and then by going deep and softening into that alignment. So I sit down a little bit, I allow my sternum to sink down and back, and then I begin to breathe into this space, breathing low, and you'll start to see, there we go, a little bit more softness, a little bit less bunching, starts to inflate a little bit more. And we'll keep working on that as we become more aware of it until the back doesn't carry excess muscular tension. Instead, it just feels like a long floating transmission or conduit of a spine. With my arms, to get the idea, you can imagine wrapping a big round ball, a big spacious ball. You don't want your shoulders to bunch in close to your body. You don't want this space to close. You're not going to close in on yourself with this style of form, with these postures. It's very much opening and releasing. So the length through my fingertips and the circularity of the wrapping of my arms, I'm going to keep that feeling as I allow my hands to come down, and then I'm going to soften as well. So I don't want that to create tension. I just want it to create this feeling of openness and spaciousness. So here again, see the length between my ear and my shoulder, this outward travel, and I'm allowing the tissues to soften, and my intention, my mind intention is to let that length travel down and through my fingertips. So rather than having curled up or contracted hands or really overly extending, I just lengthen. It's the feeling of lengthening fingers down, which puts some tension in the silk or the fascia, and I can feel that connection through my arms. Now here as I turn sideways, we're going to look at some dynamics with the chest dropping, which is necessary to fill out the lower back or the yow. We don't want the chest to be up extended too high. And so like this, as I drop my chest, it's also easy to let my chin flare forward and the back of my neck shorten. So here I'm drawing the rear crown long, tucking the chin. And that sensation of drawing the rear crown long draws my spine up. It kind of feels like it's giving me this floating spinal support. So I'm elongating my body. And as I do that, everything is softening, right? So these muscle tissues, I don't want them to be hard. I want them to be really released. I want to be allowing the shoulder to soften, and I'm not lifting my hand with my shoulder muscle. I'm kind of just letting my mind's intent travel to my hand to lift it. It's like the minimal necessary doing. It's essentially doing nothing if you could do nothing to lift the hand. It's not an exercise. As I drop the chest down like this, sink the sternum down and back, you can see how that helps me to fill out my back. And at the same time as doing that, I'm still opening the shoulders. There's this lengthening feeling. It's a regal posture almost. It's like if you imagine someone guarding a castle, instead of being up tight like this, the length of the elbows dropping down, being heavy, and the seating into the quad, into the hips, with the length through the back of the neck creates this regal, powerful looking posture. And remember, this power comes from within. It comes from the mind's focus and the mind's intent. It doesn't come from the body micromanaging and wrapping and protecting. The beauty of this is it's teaching you to hold your shape while you allow everything in. You listen to every sensation, you absorb everything fully so that you can work with it and so that you can get out of fight or flight. If you're holding standing postures for like half an hour, you're gonna feel it in your legs. It's gonna get tricky, but don't bunch. Instead of the fight, flight, freeze, tension, contract inward, release, 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 release. Put the mind through the body, keep scanning it through, don't let it wander, continue to release and just focus on the touch points of form, and you'll be able to use this practice to gain clarity and gain energy throughout life. And even if you're just walking, you can still apply the same principles of sinking the tissues, floating the bones, feeling the connective tissue, and everything becomes a bit more effortless. Enjoy.